don't feel like you can't make money in a field just because it's creative or it's not like doctor, lawyer or something. You just look into it and like interview people that have those jobs and find out what the possibility really is before you write it off. Because there are things outside of toys that I wrote off because I thought you couldn't make a living. And now I have friends making a living doing those things. We're so afraid of not succeeding that we're like, oh no, I'm not going to do the thing that's dangerous, which is like creative fields. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do business, or I'm going to do law. I'm going to be a doctor. Like I'm going to do those things. That's safe. That's what I think, why I think representation is important, so that we can follow our passions, if it's like toys or if it's art or whatever, and be successful in it. Hi, this is Ajelle Wade, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 294 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And I am super excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Ajelle Wade. And Ajelle is a toy coach, right? We have never had anyone who's worked in the toy industry on the show. And I wanted to have her on to really share her story and to show you, Dream Drivers, that it is possible to build a life, to have a thriving career in a niche field. A lot of us sometimes, as you heard in today's intro, we don't see enough representation of people who are thriving in unique fields. And I wanted to have her share her dream driving journey and show you that it's possible for you in your own life as well. Ajelle's going to talk about how she got into toys. She's going to talk about the thing, or how COVID really served as a shift in her career and put her on the entrepreneurial path. There's so many nuggets that she also touches on, such as how to pitch herself, mistakes she's made, and how she's overcome these challenges along her dream driving journey to date. So I really hope that you guys stay tuned for the entirety of this episode. It's really fun. She has a podcast herself, so there's a lot that we just talk about. We go back and forth, and there's a lot of gems that you'll be able to take away from this one. Remember, if you love this, please share it with your friends. Please share it with your community. You can find us across the board at Dreams and Drive, or Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So just post on Instagram stories, tag us. I would love to get back in and engage with you guys, so please make sure to continue sharing on social media. I really appreciate it. All right, let's hear from Ajelle.
Hi, Raina. Nice to meet you. Not see you, but meet you.
Virtually, audio meet, right?
Yeah.
In the world of virtual podcasting. Yes, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. You are Ajelle, the toy coach, right? And we haven't had anyone from the toy industry, so you are the first. So I'm really excited for our listeners to really hear about your unique story, your unique perspective, and just all the lessons we'll learn from hearing your dream driving journey.
Yeah, I'm excited to share it, and I'm happy to be the first in the toy industry. Let's do this.
Yes. So I love to start our interviews going back in time. I think it's really important for us to reflect on who we were as kids, because that theme always comes up. And it's interesting because we're talking about toys, right? But toys don't always have to be for kids. But let's go back to the young Ajelle, right? What was inspiring you as a kid? What were your dreams? What did you kind of think you were going to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a teacher for a long time. Yeah, a long time. I just wanted to be a teacher. I don't know where that came from. And essentially my sister talked me out of it. And I looked up to my sister like no other. So when she told me not to do it, I was like, okay, I need a new dream.
Why?
Because I wouldn't make enough money. And she was like, no. She was like, no, you're not going to make enough money. You need to pick something else. But she didn't say it like that. My sister's real sneaky. She cleverly manipulated words and phrases so that over time I would come to my own realization that it wasn't the path. So anyway, I went through my life telling my whole family I'm going to be a teacher. Then I met somebody while I was working at a camp. I was teaching arts and crafts at a camp. And this woman, her name was like Maria something, and she'd gone to the Fashion Institute of Technology and she'd majored in exhibition design. And I looked at her portfolio and I just thought all the stuff she was making was so cool. And I just liked her and I just wanted to do that. I was like, I want to be like you and I want to go to this school. So I went to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I studied exhibition design for my associates, but it was only a 2-year program. So after it was up, I had to pick something else. And a teacher suggested that I go into the toy industry because all of my exhibition designs were like kids exhibition designs, because I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to do kids stuff. So I did kids exhibition design. So then this one teacher's like, take this, go to the toy industry. There's a toy program at this school, go for it. So I did. I went for it. I studied toy design, and that just launched my whole career.
So let's just go back there a little bit, right? I think there's a key theme there. did anybody look at you like, hey, Ajelle, you are crazy. Why are you going into toys? And if they did, how did you respond to them and really stick to the course that you had for yourself?
No one ever. And I should really like just thank my family every day. No one ever questioned anything I was doing. Like
That's
never.
amazing. That's
Not
great.
at all. I think my dad thought I was in fashion for about 10 years of my career.
Maybe that's why they didn't question it, right?
Yeah, they had no idea. Like, I don't know. My mom was an entrepreneur my whole life. My dad worked he was like a corrections officer, but he had a whole life before that where he like ran clubs. So my family and the rest of my family is very entrepreneurial. They were just kind of like, do whatever you need to do, you know? Like,
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Long Island in a town called Roosevelt. Really small town, yeah.
My grandma lives right on the border of Long Island in Queens Village, like right by. So I think that's near Queens Village. I know where that is.
Yeah.
So you were a New Yorker, right? New York girl.
New York girl.
So you landed in the toy industry. What were like the first years of finding your place, right? So I think for a lot of us, I know coming out of college, I didn't go into the dream career that I thought I would have post-college, right? But imagine you graduated from FIT, you got this toy industry job. Was it what you thought it was going to be?
No, it was not. I was grateful to have a job. When did I graduate? 2010, was it? Yeah, I guess it was 2010. And 2008, the couple years before was just like the beginning of that recession. So it was really hard to find jobs. So felt really lucky just the year that I graduated, I was able to get a job. So at first I was just super grateful, learning everything I could, but then I felt like I wasn't being challenged enough pretty quickly. I feel like maybe a year in, I just started to feel like, wow, is this it? Like this, I'm like, what? Like, I feel like there has to be more. I need to learn more. I need to do more. And that's when I started looking I actually asked for a raise at the place I was working at, and then I didn't get it. So I started looking for other opportunities. And luckily I did, because that led me to working for like a company called Blumenthal Lansing, which actually led me to working for Toys R Us, which I think really, really kickstarted my experience in the toy industry.
So can I ask you, what exactly were you doing, right? Because when I think of working in the toy industry, it's so broad, but I know like, for example, working in the podcast industry, you can be an editor, you can be a producer, you can be a writer. Like, what was your specific niche that you were honing for yourself?
Yeah, I had so many. So when I first started, I've done so many different things, which makes me a great toy coach today. But when I first started, I was on a product innovation team. So my job was like, the CMO would come to me and say, hey, Ajelle, like this brand of like, I don't know, paintbrush kits, is like dominating the market. And we want to go after their space. What innovation can you come up with that I could take to the buyer at Walmart or Target and say, you should give us that space away from those paintbrush kits? So my job was I actually have patents from my very first job in the toy industry, because I literally would just come up with inventions all day. I'd be like, okay, if we combine this piece and that piece, and like, can we make like a toy that shoots really far, or a paint applicator that's one-time use, or a friendship bracelet maker that could make 5 friendship bracelets instead of 3? Like, I literally was inventing all day. I would be cutting up like cardboard and building little mini breadboard mock-ups and testing them to see if they would work. And then if they worked, I would sketch out a proper like what they call a plan drawing, which is like a front back side view. And then I'd send it to the factory partner in China and say, hey, I need you to make a 3D model of this. And then I need you to send me a sample. And then I would test the sample. And then after that was all figured out, I'd make like a logo and a brand. And then all of that together, I would pitch to the CMO of that company and say, here's what I've come up with. What do you think? And then they would either say, yeah, we're going to pitch this to Target, or they'd say no, or they'd be like, we're going to work on the design a little bit and then we're going to pitch it. And that's what I did.
So that's really, it's funny because I don't know this industry at all. So there are actually people whose jobs it is to figure out, what are we going to sell to these kids, right? What it's going to be.
100%.
Wow, that's pretty cool. What were you learning about yourself during this time? And, what strengths you were building as a person, as a worker, as a thinker? What were some of the things you're learning about yourself?
Early on in my career, I don't think I knew it then, but I know it now. I was really realizing how resourceful I was. And again, I didn't know it then. I was just doing what I thought everybody would do if somebody sat you in a room and said, hey, it's your job to innovate. But what I learned as I got older is that not everybody is that proactive. Not everybody can be told without any limitation, your job is to innovate and help us build market share. And we don't have a path for you to do that. You have to figure it out. I love that, which I think is why I love being an entrepreneur. But most people don't love that. Like they want a structure and they want a path. So I realize now I'm like, oh, I'm really resourceful. I don't mind if there's not a clear path.
Because look where you are now, right? You really had to carve out your own path.
Yeah, there's no path.
So when did you realize that it was time to maybe make a move? I know you said you landed up, maybe walk us through like the toy jobs that led you to the one where you're like, this isn't for me anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So after I was working as an innovation, I think it was like an innovation designer at the first company, which was called Horizon Group USA. I moved on to a company called Blumenthal Lansing. I was there for a few years. Then I got a job with Toys R Us. At Toys R Us.
Rest in peace to Toys R Us, right?
Well, no, they're coming back.
Oh, they're
coming back. Yeah, brand new news, like just released like a couple weeks ago. They're coming back. Like they
perfect.
They're coming back. So yes, so then I moved to Toys R Us. And I got an incredible job. I was working as the design manager to head up all the Girls World brands, which included like Journey Girls, You and Me, all these doll lines, playset lines, Happy Together, a bunch of toy lines. And I was also the product manager for an arts and crafts line called Totally Me. So I got a ton of experience there. So that kind of gave me the full picture view of the toy process. I'd done like the innovation from the front end, and then doing the design management, and product management really gave me like the back end, right, of that experience. Then the last company I worked for was called Creative Kids. While I was working there, I was the VP of brand and product. That was really just kind of all encompassing. I'm going to build my own team. I'm going to do everything kind of, on my own to help grow this company and see what I can do. While I was working there, I took a personal trip to celebrate my boyfriend winning a toy award because he's also in the toy industry. And while we were doing that, I met an inventor at this toy industry event, and she really just needed help. And that is the moment that I started having this idea of like, oh, I wish I could help her. And I remember thinking like, I don't have time. Like I'm the VP at a toy company. I'm too busy. I don't have time to help her, but I wish that there was like a resource out there I could point her to that would help her. And so I created one.
So let's pause right there, right? What gave you the courage to actually act on the dream, or to act, not the dream at this point? What made you actually say, hey, let me do something with this? Like, do you feel like it was destiny that led you to that? Like, reflecting on it now, what was the thing that you think really ignited that shift in you?
I think that it was just that I cared. And I knew I had the ability to help. So, because the person that I met, we exchanged information because she could have potentially pitched her idea to my boss, but she didn't have it prepared in the way that she would have needed it to be for me to like make that happen for her. So I wanted to help her, but then I couldn't. And then she ended up doing something else. And I think I just felt guilty. So like once I made the podcast to help, I was like, you should like listen to this. And I think it was more, I think the selflessness of the idea of it is what allowed me to take action without feeling that it had to live up to some standard, because I was like, I'm doing something for free to help people. If they don't like it, they don't have to listen. So like,
right.
That was kind of it. I think if I was coming out with something that I was selling right away, maybe I would have felt that. But starting with just like information made it a lot less about me. And so that's what made it easier. Yeah.
Before this, were you branding yourself as the toy coach, or were you just simply Ajelle working in the toy industry?
No, I was just Ajelle working in the toy industry. I started the name because a friend of mine, her name online is like Coach Brit. And I'd been seeing it a lot lately. So I just kind of like said, oh, that's a cool idea. So I was like, what if I was just the toy coach? Cause I figured no one would be able to remember my name. So I was like, I'll have a podcast and I'll just say it's from the toy coach. And then I thought, I was like, that's an idea. So.
No, listen. I think it's so important because a lot of us are sitting on these ideas, or a lot of us may have had moments like this, but we don't do anything with it. Right. So hearing you realize, oh, wait, I can do something with this. And now that you're here 2021, look how much has happened, or look how many opportunities have come your way because you've acted on that. Right.
Yeah.
So you help this woman, you launched this podcast. Do you remember the year that this started? Because I just want to kind of give our dream drivers a little bit of a grounding point right now.
Hold on. I feel like it was 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2020. It was January 2020. The podcast started.
Oh wait, was that pre-COVID or that was like a few months before the pandemic, right?
Let me tell you something. I work in the toy industry, so I knew what was going on in China. It was not pre-COVID. COVID was happening. Yeah, it was happening. Yeah,
because for us, like we're just hearing the rumblings of
I heard some things. I heard things that their government were doing to like keep it not spreading, and it was a lot. It was very scary.
And also manufacturing, right? Because a lot of the industry is, I want to say a lot of the manufacturing is based in China.
Yes, it is. It's moving over. Like people are trying to move to Mexico now because there's like tariff issues going on right now. Prices are going to be so increased in the coming months. But like, most of our manufacturing's in China. All the raw materials are there. All of like the machinery and the systems, everything's there. So it's hard to leave, but right before COVID hit us, I was actually supposed to be going to China. So we knew it was bad because we couldn't go. So that's what happened.
So in a way it was, I don't want to say that it gave you an opportunity, but do you feel like COVID also then gave you a time to kind of figure out what's next for you? Like, if that makes any sense?
It did. No, it's not that. It is though. What it is though, is I realized how much time I was spending building somebody else's dream instead of my own because of COVID.
Talk to me about that.
So like, I don't know. There's something about being in your own space in your home for all these hours a day and having somebody who owns the company you work for calling you, texting you, emailing you about the things you need to get done for them. And I think being in my home, in my space, working for somebody in that way, and then also having to deal with, because I was a VP level, so having to deal with the moments of like, oh my gosh, we're having shipping issues. Oh my gosh, we're having, problems here and problems there. It just made it very clear that if this business were to go away, if my boss were to say, you know what, Ajelle, COVID is bad, we can't have you work here anymore, we can't afford you. Like I would have nothing. Like what would I have? What would I have built? Like my reputation in the industry is one thing and my years of experience is one thing, but I would have absolutely no way to control my income. I would have no control over what happened to me. And then I wouldn't be able to spend. And then like I realized if we go back to work, I'm not going to be able to spend this time that I was now spending with my significant other. Like I would never see him again. I was like, wait, we're going to go back to like 5 days in the office. And then like, I'm just never going to see my significant other. And if I have kids, I'll just never see them. And it just made it really clear to me how this whole system doesn't make any sense. And how are we supposed to have thriving relationships when we're never home? Like it just didn't make sense to me. And that was like, oh no, I can't let this happen. I can't go back to this.
So what were the first things that you did to kind of, so this was your new dream, like it's my dream now to leave the dream job, essentially, right?
No, you're right. Yes, you're so right. Yes. Yeah.
A lot of us may have had that, but we don't know, okay, if I have this, like how did you actually make it happen? How did you fulfill the dream and leave the dream job?
Yeah. So because of the podcast, I was building a little bit of a name for, it wasn't really for me, it was for the toy coach. No one really knew who the toy coach was, but there was like this name building for the toy coach, right? So people had started reaching out to me saying, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I'm like, no, I work full time, but I would like connect them with my friends that were freelancing, or I would say, listen to this podcast episode, right? Then eventually somebody reached out to me and they had an opportunity that was so huge. They were going to it wouldn't replace my income by any means, but it would give me enough to live off of until I could figure something out.
Yeah, like a buffer period, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And so I took it. I was like, you know what? This is huge. I love this person's product. I love their IP. I love what they have. I want to help them. Let's do this. And that opportunity allowed me I just went to my boss one day and I was like, okay, so I think I'm gonna leave now.
Did they care? I say this because, a lot of times we think, oh, when we leave these jobs, like we're contributing so much, we're going to hurt our boss's feelings. But what was the reality for you? Did they try to convince you to stay? Well, I have to say there was one other time where I was like, I almost left for another company and they did get me to stay. And, so they did. But this time I think they were like, okay, Ajelle, fine. Like we get it. Like he was just kind of like, I could see that you're like excited about your podcast. He was like, I get it. And he was like, I understand. And I just stayed on for 2 weeks and made sure that my team was set up to continue to succeed without me. So what are you dreaming of? Adventure, more family time, a change of scenery? The nerds at NerdWallet can help you take the first step towards making your dream a reality. NerdWallet is a personal finance site run by money nerds who make it easy to compare and find the smartest financial products for you. So let's say you want to book an adventure beyond your backyard. NerdWallet can help you compare and find travel rewards credit cards so that you can use everyday purchases to rack up on points for flights, hotels, and more. Or maybe you want to spend more quality time with your fam. As dream drivers, that's important. NerdWallet can help you compare and find financial advisors so you can find less time watching investments and more time with the kids. They've got tools, calculators, and side-by-side comparisons to help you find the smartest products for you so you can turn your dreams into reality. Personally, my 2022 goal is scaling dreams and drive, so I can use NerdWallet to compare hundreds of the top credit cards and investing accounts. NerdWallet makes that super easy. Are you ready to compare your way there? Compare and find the smartest credit cards, investing accounts, and more at nerdwallet.com. NerdWallet Compare Incorporated, NMLS 1617539. NerdWallet is not an investment advisor nor an investment broker. Information is for educational purposes only. Okay, now that's inspiring, but I feel like I love that you also kind of had a plan. Like you kind of knew the direction that you wanted to go, right?
Yes.
So how did you hit the ground running? How did you go? So imagine you're in the car, right? You get in your car, you left your dream job, you're in your car, you have your hand on the gear shift, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in park.
Oh wow, you drive a manual? Okay.
You're in park, right? You're reversing. Okay. What was reversing looking like for you? All right. Leaving. What does that reverse portion feel like for you?
I love how you asked that question. Okay. I love that. All right. That's a good question. Like coming out of corporate. So, this is good. Okay. I remember, so the very last day or my very first day, I guess, of freedom was actually July 4th. How crazy is that?
Independence Day. That's crazy.
I know. So technically it was like my last day, but because it was a holiday, I didn't work. So coming out of corporate, I was relieved at first because it is incredible the amount of information that you hold in your head for this company. Like, I don't even know, like just how I was able to do it all. So it was relieving in that sense, not having to hold so much in and on my shoulders and to just start fresh. But it did get really scary just trying to, like, I made plenty of mistakes, in building the toy coach. But what helped save me from a lot of my mistakes is just having a community around me. So I actually joined a digital course because like everyone has a digital course these days, but I joined one that helped me create a portion of my business. And within that course, there was a community. So there was like this larger community. And then I also found like 4 or 5 other people that became like my tight-knit community. So I had this bigger community that I could like say, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I just left my job. And then I had this tight-knit community that I could get really honest with and say, oh my gosh, I made a huge mistake today with my client. How do I fix this? And I think that is what you have to have when you're doing a transition like this, because you just need support. Like you need help, You
need some passengers in your car, right? You might have to somebody in the back seat, somebody in the passenger seat, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was it was hard, but I don't know. I would just say I wouldn't do it without a mentor. I wouldn't do it without a community, and I wouldn't do it without that close knit, what I call a pod of people that are doing the same thing or a similar thing as me, but they are very different people, like different industries, but same entrepreneurial spirit.
No, because when I think about it, right, like if you launched your brand, like if this all started around like January 2020, it hasn't even been 2 years officially, right? So like you were able to make so much progress in so little time. So July 4th, 2020 is when you left the job. Right. And then I guess after that is when you joined the community and you were starting to, right? So what was that? What was the next big moment that was defining in the dream driving journey for you?
Okay. Yeah. So I had this podcast, but actually not a lot of people were listening to it. There were,
I remember those days, right? I remember, but you don't even know sometimes what not a lot is. You get what I'm saying? Like in the beginning when I used to get like 25 downloads an episode, I thought I was a shit. I was like, no, you didn't.
I would get like 25 and I'd be like, wow, 5 of those are definitely me.
But you have to at least be a little proud of yourself in the beginning or you won't continue. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think when no one was listening to my podcast. And then I was starting to do like Facebook boosts to try to get people to listen to my podcast. That wasn't working. And I was spending all this money and I didn't have much to sell. So I was like, what am I doing? So I invested in a course about pitching yourself. This, I think, was the biggest, like the biggest move in my whole, I don't even know what I'm doing, entrepreneurial journey, because I wanted to figure out a way to get to build authority for myself, but without going into debt with ads. So I took this course and now the woman is my friend. She taught me how to pitch myself for podcasts. And I used her formula to pitch myself for podcasts, but also TV shows and interviews, speaking engagements at industry events. So I started pitching the Toy Coach like everywhere. I was doing it myself. I would send out like 10 a day. And eventually I got some really massive coverage because of it. It led me to meeting the girls at the Craft Hangout, and they led me to going into this like podcast group online. And in that podcast group, I met a TV producer who now we're working on a project together. And then at the same time, I got on freaking Amy Porterfield's podcast.
I saw that. That's so dope. Yeah.
But that's all from, it's all from podcast pitching because it helped me organize like my angle and my thought process, like who I was. So even if I wasn't pitching, whenever I was in those communities, like I was talking with those same terms. So people were starting to notice me because I would say like the same types of things over and over again. I had a point of view. I had like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just a way of sharing information about yourself that connects with people that I learned from this freaking program. And I swear, like Angie Trueblood, I got to give her a shout out. She'll kill me if I don't. But no, I swear, like this program for me changed the game because I was able to just get insane visibility because I learned how to pitch.
No, and I think honestly, it's something I remember when I was an intern at CBS back in college. They said the best job to have out of school is sales. If you know how to sell something, if you know how to talk about something, if you know how to get people to give you the response that you want, which in sales is like money, right? Right. You will always be valuable. I know you took a course, so I don't want you to share all of your secrets with my audience, right? They gotta pay the money too if they want to get the all the tips. But what do you think was the biggest takeaway or the biggest mistake that a lot of people are making when they're pitching themselves, pitching their products, pitching their dreams, essentially, right? Like, what's the biggest mistake and how can they not make that mistake?
Right. Well, it's different for the toy industry versus like pitching yourself to be on a podcast.
All right. So maybe talk to me about the toy industry, about your experience, and then maybe a more general tip.
Sure. So with the toy industry, the biggest freaking mistake everybody makes is they send their idea in their first email. And that is the first way to get yourself blacklisted or blocked or thrown into, or have your email forwarded over to a lawyer, because major toy companies will license your idea. If they're interested in your idea, they will license it from you, which means they'll pay you to be able to manufacture that idea. But there is a process, and that process involves you emailing them with an introduction email so that they can say, sure, we would love to work with you, inventor. Like, here is how you get onboarded with us. And then you go through their process, and their process will show you where and how to submit your ideas. But the biggest thing, people even do it to me, like, please do not email me with your toy idea. Like, we don't need that kind of liability floating around. You don't want to just be giving out the intellectual property of your idea to anybody. Like, you want to own your idea. You want to keep it private and protected. And yeah, that's just don't do that.
The first thing that came to mind was like, wouldn't people think someone would steal their idea? It's so easy to copy and paste. And I mean, of course, we have patents, it's protected, but I love that you mentioned that. But okay, so now that's the toy industry. Yes. Flip it to general, real life, pitching yourself. What's something that you think a lot of people are really missing the mark on when they're trying to make these connections?
I think not knowing yourself and what you have to offer the audience that you're pitching yourself to speak in front of. And then on the back of that, not knowing who you're pitching to. So you're like, the best pitches include a little bit of information about, I know your audience serves XYZ, and that's why I think me as the toy coach would be the ideal person to come in and talk to your audience. And I would tell them about XYZ, That's what people don't do because it takes time. But in my experience, it's worth that extra time. I'd rather you send 5 pitches that are detailed than 20 pitches that are general.
Listen, I'll tell you guys. So when Ajelle's team, I don't know if it was you specifically or someone on your team who pitched, you had, and like when I said, what are some topics that you could talk about? You had the topic of when it's time to leave your dream job, right?
Yeah.
Tell me that's not alignment with the podcast. The podcast is about dream driving. So that's a concrete example there. That's why Ajelle's on the show now, because you had a great pitch.
Yes. I have like a lot of different topics. And what happens is when we look at podcasts to pitch to, I go to my VA and I'm like, okay, show me the podcast. Let me research them. And then I tell them like, okay, this one, but I want you to change this. I'll say, okay, for Dreams and Drive, I want you to use this pitch template. I remember selecting it because the name of the pitch matched your podcast. So I was like, yeah, this one is perfect. Send, no changes, So yeah, we make it specific to wherever we pitch or we don't pitch.
All right. So we're still in the car, right? Now you're in reverse. Now we're in neutral.
Okay.
Every journey has some hiccups. Nobody can go through life without challenges, right? Along this journey, and I want to say let's post 2020, right? Post July 4th, 2020.
Okay.
What was a time where you really hit a wall? And then how did you work through that?
I think you forget for me anyway, just being an entrepreneur, sometimes I forget, like when you hire somebody to do some work for you, you still have to check and understand that work. They don't work for your company. You have to, you have to own whatever they hand over to you. And that was something that I really had to come to terms with and realize, like, take ownership of. And it took me months. I'm like, not kidding you, like 2 months to get over it, because I would literally be working and just like flash back to this moment where I made a bad decision. I'm like PTSD. So yeah, no, the way I got over it was just telling myself over and over again, like, you're human, everyone makes mistakes. You did the best you could, and you're never going to do this again. And, now. And also talking to the people, the people I worked with that were part of this situation, and my partner. The tip I would give, though, and this is a tip that I should have listened at the time. My mentor told me this, and it sits with me. He always says, Ajelle, it's not the decisions that you labor over for months that you have to worry about. It's those 5-second decisions that you make. Those are usually the ones that have the biggest and sometimes worst impact on you or your business. And for me in this situation, it was literally a 5-second decision that I had made. Had I spent 30 more seconds thinking about it, I would have made a totally different decision. So it just told me I needed to slow down.
You know, I love that. That reminds me of something growing up my dad used to always say, because I hate washing dishes, right? You can give me a vacuum. I will vacuum, but I do not like washing dishes. So when I was a kid, I would always rush and wash dishes. And he would always call me back and be like, Raina, if you had done it right the first time, right? If you took your time the first time, you wouldn't have to come back. So it just reminds me of that little saying that he always told me. You know, challenges are hard, right? And I think I wanted to make sure we touch on this because I think it's important to note you are, I don't want to identify for you, right? But you identify as a Black woman, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fully Black.
You are a Black woman who's working in the toy industry. So niche, right? There aren't a lot of Black women in the industry. Why do you think it's so important that you know, or let me not say why do you think it's so important? What has your experience been, and what have you taken away from, being a Black woman in the industry?
Oh man. So I did a podcast episode on this. So
do you remember the episode number?
I want to say episode number 20.
All right.
I'm going to double check real quick, but yeah, it is episode number 20.
Okay. Very
good episode. So if you did the toycoach.com/20, that's it.
All right.
Listen, in there, I talk about this situation. I'm going to talk about real quick. I was present at a meeting in which we're developing a line of dolls, and the person said, as we're deciding like, okay, what skin tones and hair colors should these dolls have? There was a person in this meeting who said, we don't need to do a Black doll, like in this new line, new line, like imagine it's going to be like a mermaid line of dolls. It wasn't, but like, imagine a mermaid line of dolls. And like, we don't need to do a Black one. They were like, no, let's just do blonde. Let's do redhead. Let's do brunette. We don't need to do a Black one. And meanwhile, I'm in charge of this line. And I'm like, I feel as though I am not okay with this. And at the time, I didn't say anything. I wasn't really in a position to, but somebody did, luckily. So that didn't happen. But that kind of energy and attitude and that perspective has been prevalent, in a lot of my experiences, less so now, probably because I have more of a public voice and nobody wants to get in trouble, but, less so now, but it happens. I think people just need to be more, they need to see more Black people because they just, they don't know how to handle it when they see us in their space. And I don't know, they think that there aren't enough Black people that want to be in the toy industry, but I think it's just that, and you can chime in here too. Like, do you feel that as a Black person growing up, your job is to have a good career and do better than your parents did, and maybe a career in the toy industry isn't what's going to help you do that? So you don't think that first, right?
My parents are Jamaican. They would have been like, "You want to work in the toy industry? You think I didn't come to America for you to play games?" That's what they would have said with a Jamaican accent. But you don't realize there's so many opportunities, and it's funny because like I have a 1-year-old son now, right? So I understand just how important representation is. So like he's at a stage where he just likes toys and cars and trucks and stuff. So he hasn't really started playing with like action figures or things that have like color, right? But there may be a point where he like wants an action figure, right? That looks like, hopefully, he wants one that looks like him or he sees things. So it's something now that I'm realizing like, who is designing the toys that the future is playing with? And just very small things could really influence what they think about themselves or what they think about the world and their place in it, right? So it's important to have people who look like us in these decision-making seats. Because what if no one had checked the person in the room, right? And they didn't make a brown mermaid doll? Then
I don't even know. I can't even imagine.
And I love that you even are just talking about like, I think a lot of us may have very like niche dreams. And I say niche because like, I think you said that, I think I was reading on your website that you originally were interested in like display design for children. That's very, very niche, right? But you took the time to find something. So don't be discouraged if what you are interested in isn't mainstream, because there is still a space for you.
Yeah. Yes. And I could say I was very focused on money, like growing up also. And I would just say, don't feel like you can't make money in a field just because it's creative or it's not like doctor, lawyer or something. You just look into it and like interview people that have those jobs and find out what the possibility really is before you write it off. Because there are things outside of toys that I wrote off because I thought you couldn't make a living. And now I have friends making a living doing those things. So I think as Black people and even just minorities, we're so afraid of not succeeding that we're like, oh no, I'm not going to do the thing that's dangerous, which is like creative fields. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do business, or I'm going to do law. I'm going to be a doctor. Like I'm going to do those things. That's safe. And I don't know, that's what I think, why I think representation is important, so that we can follow our passions, if it's like toys or if it's art or whatever, and be successful in it.
No, I love that you mentioned it, because I think it's just something that a lot of us don't realize. Sometimes, like, all right, you might make the money up front. I have plenty of friends. So I went to Princeton, right? I have plenty of friends who are lawyers, doctors, all those, I say fancy in quotations, right? But they're not happy. They don't have time. Mm-hmm. And it's even funny, like, how you said your sister tried to convince you out of being a teacher, but look, you're now in a teacher's spot. You're a coach. You're able to make money. You're able to, you still, I know. Maybe it's not the job. What am I saying? It's the skill that you were interested in, right? Like, it didn't have to be teacher in the sense of, you're working in a school and you're teaching kindergarten kids, right? Like, but you could still apply those skills and your gifts to create a life that you like.
Exactly.
What do you think your gift is? We're talking about gifts, but what do you think your unique gift is?
Oh man, I think I'm very blessed and multi-talented, but what my students say I help them with the most is that I just motivate them to not give up, and I inspire new ideas and just the belief that they can do it. Like, I think a lot of the toy industry in the past has been so like, closed off in a sense of, no, if you want to do this, you have to go through me. If you want to pitch, you have to go through me. If you want to make a sizzle video, you have to hire this person. And the approach I'm taking is like, no, actually you can do it yourself, and I'm going to show you how.
I love that. I love that. So what's the dream now, Ajelle? Like what are you working on right now? We went from park, reverse, neutral. Now we're in drive. Where are you going?
I am working on my course. I have a course, but also I realized in making my course that people just want more one-on-one time with me. So I'm giving them that too. I'm giving them a lot of one-on-one time. So I don't know. I'm just working on making sure that I am this hub for education, whether you can't afford me, so you go to my podcast, or you're getting ready to pitch to a big company, so you go to my website and you sign up for a Pitch Perfect lesson, or you're like, you know what, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to join Toy Creators Academy and really develop my idea, because on the back end of Toy Creators Academy, I have like a pitch event for my students so they can pitch directly to toy companies. Even though in the program, I teach them how to do it on their own, I give them an opportunity to do it through me, just because people need a push sometimes. So yeah, like whatever, I'm just working on building different levels of education. So whatever you can afford, wherever you're at right now, I want you to be able to come to the Toy Coach and find what you need.
You know what? One thing I will say that I love just from doing my research and getting ready for this interview today is I love your online branding, and I love how you really have your story down, and it's very, very clear on who you're targeting. Is that something that you've learned along the way, or something that you kind of have always known since you work in the toy industry, right? Like, you have to be very clear in marketing to these kids, right?
Thank you. First of all, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Before, all right, just not to add in too much, but before I did the Toy Coach, I had a small business called Customize Me. It was an online clothing company that I needed to learn how to market. So I got obsessed with online marketing. I was like, I've listened to all the podcasts. I read all the blogs. So before I ever launched the Toy Coach, I had this library of knowledge about online marketing.
Okay.
A big part of that is knowing your audience. So that is where I pull everything from. And I'm so glad that it comes through so clearly.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. So don't be afraid to do your research, people. If there's something that you know that you need to get better at, I think you are a great example of that. And I want to end before we get into the lightning round, because I just also doing my research. You have interests outside of toys, right? Like you are a bachata dancer.
Yes.
It's something I've always wanted to do. I would love to learn bachata. I danced in college, but definitely can't do bachata. But like,
you should learn. Take classes.
I want to. Do you know of any? Well, I can send you an email.
I'll send you some. Yeah,
something local like New York City or something.
Yes, that's where I'm from. Yes.
So let us talk to me a little bit about like, how do you make sure that you, along dream driving, you're still taking time for yourself? I think that's really important. A lot of us can get, like, I just did an episode today about overcoming overwhelm and overcoming defeat. Like, how do you make sure that you are taking care of Ajelle?
Listen, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I have a dance team I'm a part of, and I force myself to rejoin it now that COVID's like kind of calmed down. We meet on Thursdays. That's like a great release for me. But honestly, this morning was the very first morning that my boyfriend and I woke up at 7:45 and we went to the gym together and we worked out for an hour. And I've got to say, this is the best I've felt in a long time throughout a work day. And I'm like, I need to try to work this into my schedule regularly. So I'm going to say exercise is probably the best way, and getting it in early for me anyway is what seems to work the best.
Yes, my exercise is chasing my son around.
Oh my gosh. I don't have any kids yet.
It gets your mind pumping. It gets your body pumping, right? I was just thinking of like, I can make a meme. Who needs exercise when you have a 1-year-old, right?
There was this one mommy influencer who would literally take videos of herself using her kids as weights. Like she would just like pick them up.
Most definitely. I am learning that these kids, they will try you.
Oh my gosh.
All right. But lastly, Ajelle, if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right? Yes. So can you tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
Yes. So you want a mentor. Number 1, somebody, and it doesn't have to be someone you know in person. I felt like my mentor was somebody that I used to follow on this podcast. I was like, you're my mentor, even though you've never met me, because you're going to model a portion of, or all of your business after them. You don't want to start completely from scratch. Professional experience, I would say, is number 2. I would say 5 years at least of professional experience in whatever niche you're going to build your business around. That's going to give you authority. Honestly, 5 to 10 years, but if all you have is 5, roll with it and serve the newbies, serve the people just starting. And then the third thing I would say is a community. Like for me, it's a pod. For you, it might be a mastermind, whatever community that you can join, because, you want to learn from other people and you're going to want support as you're going through this whole thing. You don't want to be in a situation where you're the smartest person in the room. You don't want to be in a situation where you are with a bunch of people that are exactly like you. You want people that are going to challenge you. And that's what I have. I have a lot of that. And I think that's what helps me push to the next level every quarter in my business.
And, one thing I want to add is like, sometimes you might have to pay for the community, right? Like, don't be afraid to invest in yourself as well. If there aren't free communities that you can join. I know there are, some communities that are paid. So that's just something, don't let that be a deterrence if that's the way your way in as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, this has been such an amazing conversation, Ajelle. I really am just inspired because I love talking to people in new industries, right? Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about the Toy Coach?
Definitely head over to thetoycoach.com. But if you're really into Instagram, you can go to @thetoycoach. But I'm not a fan of the algorithm at the moment. So go to thetoycoach.com.
TikTok is where it's at.
Yeah, I did a couple TikToks. It's just a lot for me right now emotionally. But thetoycoach.com, there's a chat bot on there. You could talk to me like right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ajelle.
Oh, thank you so much, Raina. This was awesome.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 294. I hope you enjoyed hearing Ajelle's dream driving journey and her keys to success. If you love this episode, you already know what to do. Please make sure that you are sharing your listening experience across social media. You can find us across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @Dreams and Drive. And if you want to join our weekly newsletter, The Keys, and get email updates delivered right to your email inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. So So do you know somebody who is thriving in a very niche industry, or maybe it's you? Maybe you want to share your dream driving journey with us as a whole, the dream driving audience. You can always pitch your journey and your story at www.dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. That's dreamsanddrive.com/pitch. I'm always looking through all those pitches. And sometimes it's just good to drop your info, drop your story there, because if I'm in need of a particular type of story, that's the database that I hit up first. All right, guys, as always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we will chat again in episode 295. Bye.